This is a video on experiential avoidance, what I refer to as the most important idea in all of psychology. My name is Dr. Greg Muller, and I'm a licensed psychologist and an assistant professor living in Austin, Texas. Now, before you watch this video, please take a minute to review this disclaimer. It applies both to the content in this presentation and in future videos that I'll make. So we're talking about experiential avoidance, and when I have this conversation with people, I very commonly show them Wikipedia because I know that this is something that they can review on their own. So let's take a minute and look at this. So experiential avoidance has been broadly defined as attempts to avoid thoughts, feelings, memories, physical sensations, and other internal experiences, even when doing so creates harm in the long run. So the idea behind this is that as humans, we avoid as a way of coping. And very often that form of avoidance-based coping gets us into serious trouble. Now, another reason that this is so important is that a lot of what we think of as behavioral health or mental health disorders, we can think about it in terms of how avoidance plays out in the pathology of the disorder. So let's look at several examples. So major depressive disorder. So people feel intense sadness, guilt, low self-worth, and they avoid through isolation or through suicide. Suicide is very often an avoidance strategy. When you talk to people that are seriously depressed and you ask them, like, do you actually want to die? Very commonly they say, no, I don't want to die. I just don't want to be alive anymore. The avoidance is present in how they're experiencing the symptoms. Post-traumatic stress disorder. People have traumatic experiences, their body becomes sensitized to threat, and they have intrusive memories, anxiety, concern for their safety, and they avoid any reminders of that trauma. Their body's on alert. Social anxiety, panic disorder, agoraphobia, OCD, substance use disorder, particularly we see experiential avoidance in substance use disorder. The substance is the form of avoidance that manages the symptoms. And then there's a cycle that people get caught up in using that substance. So several things to remember. Very often when I'm having this conversation with people about experiential avoidance, they start, feeling bad, like, oh, I'm doing this avoidance thing. It's not so good. But it's important to recognize, we're all human. We all avoid sometimes. So examples that I commonly reference are people wear shoes so that they avoid, getting their feet injured when walking around. You probably wear a coat if it's a cold day out. You have the AC on at your house to avoid the heat. And so avoidance isn't bad in and of itself, but avoidance may be a problem if it's our first solution that we jump to, if it's our only option that we go with, if we're using it inappropriately or too rigidly. So I use the example of the weather. Like if you're at your house and it's, oh my God, the temperature in my house has to be 68.5 degrees and I won't be able to tolerate it if it's not that. And oh my God, it's so hot outside, I'm going to cancel all my plans with my friends. So that's an example of when experiential avoidance will get in the way of you living your life and cause functional impairment. And so it can be really tricky to try and figure out, am I engaging in approach or avoidance? And so the question that I commonly pose is, am I moving towards what I want, or am I moving away from what it is that I'm afraid of? And so in terms of how I think about outpatient therapy, I really like questions because it moves people from a place of fear and distress into a place of curiosity. And so as it relates to experiential avoidance, the question that I offer commonly is, how do we help you develop a healthy relationship with avoidance? Avoidance isn't going away, and avoidance isn't necessarily a bad thing. How do you develop a healthy relationship with avoidance? And so the answer to that very often is through what we refer to as approach-based coping strategies. Approach-based coping strategies are present in cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, and exposure therapy. And so one of the goals that we're also trying to punch towards is understanding what is the pattern of avoidance that we engage in, so that with that knowledge, we can challenge that form of avoidance when it's appropriate to do so. And so I plan to talk more about the idea of approach-based coping strategies when I do some content on acceptance and commitment therapy. And so thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Again, my name is Dr. Greg Muller. If you're interested in this work, please consider looking at my website or subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and have a great rest of your day.